We're back. You're listening to Gail Rosika's Utah Eagle Forum radio show, and our guests today are Tom Drashel and Joel Skousen. We've been talking about the issue of the Obama birth certificate and how it obviously is a forgery, and the whole issue of him being qualified to be our president. I think you said that before we went on the top of the hour break that you were going to switch subjects here, and I also wanted to know if you are ready to take callers or you want to go over your
I'll tell you what,
first.
we because Joel has been willing to stay on for a second hour today, we appreciate that. I'm going to let you make that call, Joel, as to whether or not you think we can get through. We wanted to take a lot of time to kind of relax on that one, because it's such a major issue. We have time for callers as well. Why don't we go ahead and get into this next issue, and then maybe we can take callers after that. What do you think?
Yeah, I would appreciate having some callers interact with us on the birth certificate issue as well as on this new issue on whether or not this was...
All right. Then let's just go ahead and take some callers. We'll get started on this, and they can call in right now if they have questions. And, Marianne, because we are, far here, you'll have to let us know when you have a caller who that we need to take here.
I will be glad to do that. Let me give out the numbers if you'd like to join us on the air. It's 801-254-5855, 801-470-5855, and 801-670-5855. 5855 is just KTKK, the call letters for K-Talk Radio.
Joel, before we get to the WikiLeaks and Guantanamo Bay and so on, because you mentioned that, because the World Affairs Brief that comes out tomorrow will be getting into the Osama Bin Laden death and so on, but we're not going to be able to. It will be a month old by the time we are on the air talking about that again. You want to preview that a little bit? Is there something you want to say about that right now?
No, I really do. I think we ought to take significant time because it is a hot topic right now. And,
yes, it is.
If people order from me through editor at worldaffairsbrief.com the sample issue, they can get the last one about all the Guantanamo, WikiLeaks, and Blackwater issues that I covered there, as well as the birth certificate issue. So let's move on to the latest Obama deception, which is about Osama Bin Laden. Now, there is no doubt that Osama Bin Laden is dead. The only real question is, when did he die?
And how many times has he died?
Yeah.
And how many times has it been reported?
Well, this is the 9th. This latest and final bit of military and political theater is merely the last in a long series of perhaps 9 stories from 2002 to the present announcing Osama's death. Apparently, the establishment decided that maintaining the myth of the Osama threat had outlived its usefulness. What isn't gone, however, is the phony war on terror, a new boogeyman or false flag terror event. Even now will have to be invented in order to continue the justification that we are at war with the Muslim world. Now, the only thing Americans can count on for sure is that our own government will continue rampaging through the world under the guise of saving it from terrorists and tyrants. But these same terrorists and tyrants are people that they have created, provoked, or sustained, and the results will not be but continual warfare into the future and the draining of what value remains in the American economic system. Well, at least we won't have to endure more fake Obama videos or tape-recorded messages. We have documented in past World Affairs briefings the numerous times that the CIA has certified the veracity of various threats received from Osama bin Laden, and how various Arab-speaking experts had noted the voice, diction, and accent of the speakers different from the original recordings we have of Osama bin Laden. It became obvious that the U.S. or its terror affiliates were in possession of at least one Obama lookalike who was being used to produce these videos and create what threats the U.S. found useful to promote the war on terror. World Affairs Brief and other sources have documented for decades the long CIA relationship with Osama bin Laden and his family, using him as a transfer agent between the Saudi money and the Mujahideen of Afghanistan, all directed by the CIA. Now, that relationship with Osama bin Laden and the CIA continued right up to 9/11 as the U.S. continued to provide Osama dialysis treatment for his kidney disease at an American hospital in Dubai. Bin Laden was at the American hospital between the 4th and the 14th of July, had been clearly documented. His doctor in the American hospital was Terry Calloway, the CIA station chief, who met Osama at that same hospital room was Larry Mitchell. All of this was detailed on French TV, quoting Le Figaro and Agence France Presse. Well, he did have severe kidney disease, so we have to ask, how would Obama be able to hide out in caves and highly guarded homes in Pakistan without many trips to the hospital or the use of a portable dialysis machine, which was not present, by the way, in the home when the U.S. claimed they shot him. Osama would have required dialysis at least every other day and perhaps daily, given the length of time he'd been suffering from the disease. Hiding out without such a machine would have been virtually impossible.
Well, they'll be able to discover that machine later and get away with it, just like, the magic bullet on the gurney, right?
They could, but it's obvious.
You got the media in your pocket.
In the house where the photographs were taken, Reuters got access to, it was very obvious that they took the camera through the house. There was no dialysis machine. These are not small. These are not easy to hide. It was not there. And they only had one helicopter because the other helicopter of the insertion team crashed, and therefore it would have been impossible to take that machine with them. But I'm sure they'll come up with some excuse. Although, the tactic of the White House now has been, we're not giving any more details. There have been so many cross stories and change stories by the official version. They've decided we're just getting in more trouble by trying to clarify. So they're not telling any more details about anything.
Tom,
now, Joel,
can I
you
interrupt
realize,
you?
Yeah.
We do have a caller. Can we go ahead and get to him now?
Yeah, let's do.
Sure.
Okay. Jeff, you're on the air with us.
Yeah, doing well, buddy. The Constitutional Forum. I've got a question about the hospital. Nobody's brought it up. I understand the hospital where Obama was allegedly born was not built until 1963, 2 years after the fact. What do you know about that?
I can't hear your voice very clearly. Speak maybe a little further away from
the microphone. Obama was allegedly born in 61, but the hospital in which he allegedly was born at wasn't built until 1963. Have you come across that?
Which one? You talking about the Kenyan hospital or the Hawaiian hospital?
The Hawaiian hospital was not built until 63, and he was born there in 61.
I can't understand his voice. Will someone translate?
I think what he's saying, Joel, is that what about the allegation that the hospital that he was supposedly born in Hawaii, Kapiolani, was not there until 1963. I don't think there's any question that it was there. The only issue has been whether or not the name, over the name that you talked about.
Yes, the was registered at that hospital during his birth.
Let me answer. We have verified and true birth certificates from the days before and after Obama at that same hospital, and they do say the same name of the hospital, Kapiolani Maternity and Gynecological Hospital. So apparently that was in use at the time, regardless of the technical name changes that occurred in 1978 and in 1964. So I don't think that is a major issue that we should be concerned with.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your call, Jeff.
Joel, on this, I guess the term that I want to use is that you're going to be accused on the Osama Bin Laden murder issue here. You're going to be accused of a kind of a moon landing staged in the studio type conspiracy here. That hey, wait a minute, we've all seen it. We all know that it's true. We've seen the videos of the strike. And we know it's all happened and so on. And now, granted, his body was disposed of at sea, and we're not being given the details on the DNA and all that. We're not really being given any proof that it was him and that he was killed and so on. But you then have to have all those Team 6 Navy SEALs, involved and whoever else was involved in carrying whatever bodies out. What do you say about that?
Well, I have no doubt that a raid occurred. We do have one crashed helicopter, and it's a very unique helicopter. It's a stealth helicopter. I reported in the World Affairs Brief that one of my subscribers about 6 years ago had an encounter with these stealth helicopters in central Wyoming. It was at night, and these helicopters came over, and they literally made no whop, 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 whop sound of a typical helicopter. It was just like a a whooshing fan going by, and they had many, many, many more blades than they do on a typical helicopter. The most that we've seen on a helicopter is 5 blades. These had as many as 15 blades on the helicopter, he said, so that there was none of the pounding of the air that occurs. They also had stealth features on this, the tail at least, that had broken off on one side of the wall. The helicopter burned on the other side. The tail that was visible and was photographed as the U.S. was there with a crane trying to haul it away before people could see it. It very clearly has stealth features to it about this helicopter. So the raid actually occurred. Something happened. One of the helicopters was lost. That means the entire team had to exit the area with the body of Osama Bin Laden in another helicopter. And, of course, the U.S. claims to have rushed the body by helicopter to a sea burial, supposedly to honor the Muslim necessity for an honorable burial when burial in the earth is not possible. Now, this defies all reason. Why so soon? How was this determination made? And was there a shortage of cemeteries in the town? Well, not at all. The burial in the ground would have provided a constant demand to exhume the body to verify the identity of Osama Bin Laden through DNA or otherwise. Now,
they got rid of that body faster than they got rid of the building, the 9/11 buildings there, and shipped them off.
But exactly right, and that's typical of these claims: of get rid of the evidence. You know, they altered the body of JFK in the assassination. They did an autopsy at Army Walter Reed Medical Hospital before they got to Bethesda. In fact, the X-ray technician was taking X-rays of JFK to the X-ray room to be developed. As you're walking across the elevated stairway in the lobby of Bethesda, and in comes Jackie Kennedy with the casket. So we know that there were 2 caskets. And, you know, those are the kinds of things that prove that there's a conspiracy to lie to American people. The removal of the body, and then the refusal to show photographs, you know, is very close private facial evidence. They didn't have the body, and he wasn't real. Now, there's other kinds of corroborating evidences coming forth that are appearing to prove that this was Obama, and I'll cover those in a minute. But let's talk about the DNA testing. Obama claimed on the very day that the raid had closed, less than 16 hours from that point, he announced the raid, that they had confirmed his identity with visual and DNA results. Now, to do a cross-match of DNA with anyone requires at least 24 hours, and to do a DNA cross-match with other family members would have taken even longer. And this assumes that they had known samples on hand of Obama's actual DNA, which you would have had to have found somewhere else, soon, and that's very, very difficult to do when the person is in hiding. Or you would have had to have some family member's DNA, and that kind of matching takes a lot longer than 24 hours. So the U.S. was lying again. Now the U.S. media is covering for these improbable claims. They're now saying the DNA testing is underway. It wasn't used to confirm Bin Laden's death. Instead, facial recognition was employed, and they said that the team is 90% certain that it was Osama Bin Laden. Now, here's what I think happened. I think one of these lookalikes that they had, which they used to videotape the false Obama videos, was set up to be in that house. They raided it and killed him, and enough for the SEAL team to be, convinced this was Osama Bin Laden. And then they get Osama Bin Laden, then they get rid of the body so that no close identification and comparison can be done. Now, that's, I think, exactly what happened.
Joel, let me repeat, if I understand correctly, what you're saying is that of course, beginning with, we were told that the DNA testing was done, and so we know for sure that it's him. There have since been DNA experts who have said, hey, it takes 24 hours to do even and if you're doing it with family members, as they're saying, he did it with his sons and his mother, then it takes even longer than that, and so there's no way that they could have done this in the short period of hours that they're saying that they had the DNA proof and so on, and so that now they're saying that facial recognition was used, and they're over 90% sure because of facial. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what their story is, and they keep changing, of course. And
anyway. And as we continue this, when we get back, I'm going to want to ask you if you would take a moment to summarize possibly some of the other reports of his death previously, any of them that may be credible or not, and so on.
Well, could you help me, please?
We're back.
All right.
You're listening to the Utah Eagle Forum radio show. I'm Marianne Christensen, sitting in for Gail Rosica today, who is away taking care of some family matters. We have as our guest today Tom Drashel and Joel Skousen. They've been talking about international issues and most recently about the death of Osama Bin Laden. Guys, we have a couple of callers, so let me know when you want to get to those callers. Do you want to take them right now?
Joel, could you give us a quick summary of just the times before where we've had reports of his death, including maybe Benazir Bhutto and so on, and then we can maybe take the caller too?
Well, the major report, the most credible, I believe, was Benazir Bhutto, the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, an interview with David Frost on international television talking about the death of Osama Bin Laden by a particular sheikh in the terrorist movement who had assassinated him, and talked about the place and the time. It was very credible. There have been others before. One report about his dying, this was a Dan Rather CBS report about his dying of kidney disease, and there were a couple of others. I can't remember the exact details, but there have been cataloged on an article on prisonplanet.com by Paul Joseph Watts and some 8 other times in which Osama bin Laden has been reported dead. And I think he really was. I think they did resurrect. Personally, I think one of the agendas here, which we can get about after the calls, but one of the agendas here is to promote Barack Obama. I'm convinced that the powers be want to give him another 4 years, and boosting his image at a time when it's failing badly through this propagandized stunt was, I think, the major agenda behind this.
You know, Joel, I wondered about that too, but it seems a little bit early for that. The election is still 1.5 years away.
Well, at the same time that they are doing a great deal to muddy the waters within the Tea Party movement. First of all, the major strategy is to divide and conquer. That's one of the reasons why they whispered in John Huntsman's ear to run against Mitt Romney. Now, these are almost 2 identical clones, people who are only superficially conservative but are very ambitious, want to get ahead in the world. They want to please the establishment, and that makes it a key towards working with the establishment, working with people, wanting to please the establishment, hiring a lot of establishment advisors who are mostly neocons and people involved with the Council on Foreign Relations. But I think Huntsman's entrance into the race is attempting to split the support among the Mormon vote for Romney. I think I've counted almost a dozen now people, the powers that be, are getting to run for the Republican nomination. And part of this is an attempt to make Ron Paul's movement into the presidency just swallowed up with a sea of other competitors, so that it becomes very difficult for him to show up as he did in 2008, when he was the only one in a field of about 5 at the debates was doing anything significantly different. You throw into this the Trump issue and the incredible polls that are showing Trump with 30 and 40% support, which is just absolutely ludicrous, in my opinion, unless the American people are dumber than I thought. But I think there's a real Ross Perot-type movement here to split off the independent and some of the Tea Party support to be able to hand the election back to Barack Obama. Now, you're right, it's a little early, but everything's getting started early, and I think part of the reason is because Obama has been so unpopular, they've got to start early to try to resurrect his image, and I have a feeling we're going to have a major Middle East war that's going to quell the anti-war sentiment that Ron Paul is building up. I think there's going to be, I think they're working overtime to work on all fronts to try to manipulate this upcoming election.
You brought up some great points, and one of which was the polls, all the online polls that I've seen. Who would you vote for president if the election were today, are overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, and that I've had the same thought as you. Can Americans be as stupid as that?
Well, sure they can. You know, I mean, most Americans don't have clear principles in their mind that they measure things against. They're going by gut feel and their own conservatism and what Bill O'Reilly says, or you know, or whatever. And you know, frankly, a lot of people, myself included, say, well, at least I love the fact that he's you know, being blunt about things and talking tough, and or at least talking directly so we can understand it and so on. Of course, you're exactly right that he's not Captain Moroni. He's not even you know, he's just not a conservative Republican. That's all.
Yeah, he's a fraud, and he's meant there to lie to the people, to siphon off votes. And I think it's very important that people have to realize been putting out in tomorrow's World Affairs Brief, the only one of any of these Republicans, virtually hands down, that we can trust not to compromise, to stand true, is Ron Paul. And we may not agree on everything that Ron Paul says, but people ought to realize that the only thing that matters is that someone the establishment cannot manipulate, and he's the only one.
Joel, I have to say that
you brought that up in relation to Mitt Romney and John Huntsman, too. I definitely think that they are in bed with the powers that be, and that we will not be able to trust them.
Well, I only caution there that I don't think they're knowing conspirators to this larger conspiracy of globalism to take down, but they are so anxious to get ahead, so anxious to please the establishment, as is typical with many LDS politicians, sadly to say, like Mike Leavitt and others, that they are blind to what's going on in the conspiracy issues, and that's why they're dangerous. They don't have to be part of the conspiracy to actually follow in lockstep with what those powers that be want them to do, because they're so anxious to please.
And they'll rationalize all day long and the rest of their lives that, hey, I'm just doing this. They don't even realize the little compromises that they make to go along with the powers that be, so that they can do good, so that they can be.
It's like Orrin Hatch. Orrin Hatch has bent over backwards all of his life to please the establishment, and only now that his political career is threatened is he's coming back and playing the arch-conservative again. And I hope Utahns are not fooled by Orrin Hatch's sudden change of heart to come back to conservative.
Prior to his re-election vote here in 2012.
I agree with you that they're not part of the conspiracy, but I think it's fair to say that they are purposefully keeping their eyes closed.
Absolutely. I agree.
All right. Now, you say we have a couple of callers.
Yes. Let's get to the callers now. Tom, you're on the air with us.
Yes, Joel, Tom, I certainly appreciate your time you're spending with us. We haven't heard from you both for a long time. What I'd like to point out is that Osama essentially was murdered. He was supposedly unarmed. And the fact that the American public and the news media present this as a great thing, it certainly shows of the decay in our moral attitude in the United States here. Formerly, we would take someone captive. Of course, they couldn't, because he would expose them. He would expose their fraud if they had to bring him out and show him in public. But this surely shows how morally bankrupt we are here in the United States.
And isn't it somewhat ironic that the reason that we're giving that he's buried at sea so quickly here was that we're just he's Muslim, and so that's Muslim tradition, and somehow or other we're wanting to honor his Muslim tradition and bury him to overthrow all the other compelling interests. It's the same kind of a thing as getting rid of the 9/11 towers, totally getting rid of all of that evidence, how much could have been used for good and so on, and yet we're going to get rid of it for this one dumb reason, Well, the same thing here. In fact, I had thought about, my mom watches O'Reilly here, and I thought about writing into O'Reilly. Everyone's saying you're doing such a wonderful job covering the Osama Bin Laden, and I'm wanting to say, you didn't do such a wonderful job. You ought to be saying this is nuts. This is nuts. It's crazy. It is morally corrupt. It's stupid to believe that we would want to honor his Muslim beliefs and bury him at sea, and when there's such overriding reasons to not do so, Okay.
And, of course, that was just an excuse. What about the 3 people they left dead on the floor? They cared nothing for their Muslim beliefs, of course, to give them a decent burial. So it's very suspect that was the reason. I think it's obviously an excuse to be able to keep the body away from the people, because it wasn't Osama Bin Laden. Now, whether or not it was a lookalike or Osama Bin Laden is not a matter. The point is that the caller brings out is absolutely true, that when this is if this were Osama Bin Laden, there's the greatest intelligence you could ever have, about Al-Qaeda. Of course, as he says, the problem is Al-Qaeda at the top is a CIA-run operation. They don't need Osama Bin Laden to tell them anything because he's their operative. And even though I don't believe that was Osama Bin Laden, I believe it was the lookalike that they shot and took away. Nevertheless, there's no intelligence to be gained, and that explains why they wasted him and took him away.
Say what you like, but you're not going to get this kind of a discussion anywhere else. Possibly, probably, I guess, on InfoWars. If you listen to Alex Jones, I assume I haven't actually. your own saying about this?
Well, he's saying much of what I'm saying. I know that they don't believe that this was Osama Bin Laden, that he was killed many years ago, or died of kidney failure.
You're not going to hear that on the mainstream media. You won't even hear that issue raised, I don't think, other than to say that there are, I guess you have. I do remember Hannity saying, well, that burial at sea thing has allowed some of the crazy conspiratorialists to question this, but that's about the closest we came to any discussion.
Yeah. Well,
Tom, appreciate it.
Hannity and O'Reilly are dead set against any conspiracy. Yeah. Do we have another caller?
Yeah. We do. Actually, our lines are full, so let's move on to the next one. I need to work out the problem with having Joel on a regular line, so hold on just a second.
Okay. We've battled that for decades there now.
Okay.
Just push that button that they were on and they're gone.
Line one is just really hard to push. Okay, is it Harvey?
Tell those cheapskate owners to get some new phones.
You're on the air with us. Caller, are you there? Well, I guess we lost him. Okay, let's go to our next caller. Jim? Am I remembering your name right? Hold on just a second, Jim.
Are they potted up?
Okay, Jim, you're on the air with us.
Okay, thank you, guys. You struck a chord with me, and not in a good way. I consider to be a very conservative person. I go right down the line with you guys on many issues, including, Hatch coming back to be a conservative. Give me a break. We need to get that guy out of here. I also agree with you on many other points that you did. But in order to beat Obama, we're going to need a charismatic, dynamic leader, kind of a guy that shoots from the hip to appeal to the guts of America. And I can't believe that right now you're dismissing Donald Trump. I mean, he's a Looney Tune kind of a guy. It's a long, but no one else has the ability to do what he's going to do. I mean, I agree with you that neither of the Mormon candidates are even a remote possibility, and I hate them anyway. And I'm a staunch Mormon myself, but Trump brings so many things to the table, and it just turns my guts to hear you dismissing him offhand right now. He's maybe the only guy that has a chance to beat Obama.
Fair comment. Go ahead, Joel. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, in the first place, I don't know how you can take comfort in the fact that you have a fraud of a person claiming to be a conservative. He doesn't have any history of it. He simply is flat out lying about his positions in order to gain traction within the conservative and the Tea Party movement. So, charisma for what? Charisma, yes, can get someone elected, although there's, many would disagree that he has the kind of charisma that invokes presidential, aspirations.
Yeah, but the charisma worked for Obama, and you got to be kidding me if you think Ron Paul's going to win this election.
I didn't say that I thought that Ron Paul could win the election. Let me finish. The point is not to simply get someone elected, because you can get someone elected like George Bush, but he does nothing for you except project the globalist, image. And by the way, it wasn't the charisma that Obama got elected. He had the power of the establishment and the media behind him, and believe me, they can make or break any candidate. If they want to put Donald Trump in, they can, but I believe strongly that he's a foil. They have no intention of letting him become president, and I don't think he'd be a good president even if he were. We have to get over the concept that anybody but Obama, because we're going to get somebody other than Obama someday, and it won't do any good any more than George Bush did us any good.
Well, I do agree with that point, but any of these candidates that you're throwing out there right now, except for Ron Paul, are that, that they're going to go along with the establishment, and they're not going to get what we need done.
That's right. That's correct.
And that's why I say we have to say, it doesn't matter if you can't win. We have to do everything we can never to vote for another person other than a principled statesman. Otherwise, we continue to throw away our votes to the lesser of two evils. We will be continuing down the same path, and it corrupts our conservatives when we start believing in someone like John McCain or George Bush, and they teach us that some socialism is okay and that continued warmongering and others is in our national interest. This corrupts our own conservatives. So it's better to lose.
I got to throw in my 2 cents worth here, too. And if it's any consolation here, I like Trump's chutzpah. I like his, in-your-face pro-Americanism, the damn the torpedoes, and damn anyone that doesn't like the United States, that kind of a stuff. I like the fact that he doesn't seem to be controlled by the powers that be. But you cannot, and I want to come back to that in just a second, but you cannot get past the fact that this guy on all kinds of issues is not only not a constitutionalist, he's not a conservative, and he would not be a good president. I believe, however, that it's kind of a moot issue, or it's not, because as a I don't believe that the powers that be in the Republican Party will ever let him get near the nomination because he is not controllable, or at least if he's not controllable. That's what we all like about the guy, that he's not a regular old politician that's mealy-mouthed and so on, and yet if he really is not controllable, they will never let him get near the nomination. I mean, he'd be dead before he could get, and they'll destroy him in the media long before. I believe he's in there right now to accomplish some kind of purposes, but I don't believe he'll be there in the long run. I just, all I'm trying to do is to validate what you're saying. I wish we had some candidates, and frankly, I wish that Ron Paul, who's the man, and again has no chance of getting elected without a miracle, but I wish that he had the same chutzpah and in-your-face stuff that Trump has. There we go.
Okay, I can see your point of view on that, but I also think that a lot of those same things that you've said about Trump were also possible to say about Reagan. He's just a movie star. He's an actor. He can't do this. He wouldn't be a good president.
Not so. He was very principled. Reagan was very strong as an individual. He was he wasn't a pure constitutionalist, and he certainly did some things wrong. But you have to give it to him. He fought his State Department all the way through there. He ended up giving in to him towards the end and went along with Gatt.
But Tom,
yes,
wasn't it a miracle that Reagan got the nomination?
It wasn't. It was in spite of all the efforts. The powers that be have much more control now than they did at that time. But it was a miracle that he got elected instead of the choice, which was George Daddy H.W. Bush.
Exactly. We have to go to a break now. And
we can't let the best be the good, the enemy of good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
60. And we're back. We have the board just loaded with callers, so we're not going to take time listening to music. Should we go to our next caller, or did you want to do some follow-up comments first?
Okay. No, let's go ahead to the next call.
Okay, next is Harvey. Harvey, you're on the air with us.
Yes. 15 seconds of comment and then 10 seconds of question.
Okay.
Thank goodness you guys are there. Tom and Tom and Joel back together again. Unfortunately, your voice of reason is not giving me any comfort. This Trump guy is Trump. Hey, check out the name. He's Trump and Ron Paul. My grandson is a better liar than the Obama administration. He's better on Photoshop, too. There's my comments. And then my question is one of these fiendish groups that we're after all over the world going to stop throwing dirt clods and start getting, really active?
Joel, that's your question.
Well, the answer to that is very important, because if we had real terrorism, and I think real terrorism is being built by the United States by our consistent intervention over there.
I agree.
If we had real terrorism, we have open borders with Mexico. They would have been coming across in the past 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, every day, blowing up shopping malls, Amtrak railroad, electrical pylons. We have had no normal acts of terrorism, only a few high-profile acts that have always been involving some type of FBI agent provocateur called informant, but they're agent provocateurs providing explosives and other things. And I'm a firm believer, and I have the evidence to show it, that 9/11 was a totally contrived position using terrorists.
I don't think I ever heard you say that before.
Well, on my website...
You saw the buildings come down. I worked in Las Vegas. I saw buildings come down.
Yes, and you can see Building 7 came down in 9/11. It came down with
7
controlled demolition.
Okay, we'll give the other on the 2. Even though, at free fall, good grief. Joe, I didn't know you were thinking this your way.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for being, you guys, there.
All right, thank you.
thank God for K-Talk Radio.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Harvey. Thanks so much for your call.
All right, Jim.
Thanks. Our next caller. Our next caller is, and I'm having a hard time with the buttons. That button is
stuck.
Well, it's clicking like it should be going on, but it's not getting him on the air with us. Let's try this line with Ed. John, I'll come back to you. Ed, you're on the air with us.
Yeah, it's been a long time, Tom.
Hey, Ed, welcome. Go ahead.
Yeah. If you recall, I was part of the initial discussions on K-Talk, on the Merrill Cook Show and yours, about the 9/11 being a total fraud and a false flag to get us into a war footing to go over there in the Middle East and fight for, well, I'm going to say Israel's interest. But this discussion went forward on Alex Jones, yes, but also the American Free Press. And I wanted to make a couple of points, but first, Joel, I really like your point about...
In the interest, keep it to one point, and then, give us a question that...
Yeah.
Just go full board.
Okay. Joel, your point about Donald Trump being, to bring this to a crescendo, this birth certificate deal, and then let it die, seems to be playing out. I know you're very astute at picking up CIA modus operandi that way. But, Joel, weren't you on the Republic Broadcasting Network with John Stadtmeier a while ago?
I haven't been on with John Stadtmeier in a couple of years.
You were on the Republic Broadcasting interview?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I did hear that, but...
Dr. Bill Deagle.
Pardon me?
I was with Dr. Bill Deagle yesterday on that show.
Yeah. Okay. But I think what's happening here, Tom, it's all fitting together where we're having all of these false flag operations, and now this Osama Bin Laden, you're right, he's been dead. That's what the Pakistan Prime Minister woman who was assassinated, maybe over the fact that she revealed the death of him and Tora Bora back in December of 2001. They're bringing this up to give this guy looking like he's presidential, numerous reasons. They gave this phony war on terrorism a shot in the arm. And if I can leave with one final comment, Tom.
Yeah.
Are you following the Edgar Steele murder-for-hire trial in Idaho?
Every once in a while, every 2 or 3 months.
Let me leave you with this then.
Month.
Are you aware that Larry Fairfax, the one that actually was charged with the pipe bombs in Cindy Steele's car, in her SUV, there was a co-conspirator in the car. The media will not publish the name of the fella. I'll tell you in a second who it is. The local media up there covering the trial so far haven't said anything about it. But in the car with Larry Fairfax, according to Tracy Wellen, the federal prosecutor in the case, who admitted this to the attorneys for the Steele, is the brother of television's Bill Maher.
Oh,
have you heard this?
Not aware of that. But interesting. People can, if they want to Google Edgar Steele, they can do so. Interesting. I have a couple of problems with him. I like reading his nickel rants and so on anyway because he says so much good stuff.
Tom?
I am convinced he truly is a bigot. But, as far as other things concerned, I like him,
Yeah, but Tom, if they go to his website, they have to put the dashes in there because there's a free Edgar deal, some kind of an internet thing going on. It's Edgar dash. It's free. You got to free him. FREE, free dash Edgar dash Steele.com.
All right. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you for the call, Ed. We're going to try and go to John now on this.
Push that button harder. Get out the big hammer.
John, you're on the air with us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for holding on.
And thank you, Joel and Tom, for being on today. Number one, I think we can all agree that both parties are corrupt at the top. I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind. So why would we not want an outsider? Why would we not want a loose cannon? Why would we not want someone who possibly isn't bought off? $1 billion doesn't mean that much to him. And if we can get someone who is a Teddy Roosevelt or a character in here that believes in the United States, believes in the Constitution, that's enough for me. He doesn't have to believe in the Republican Party at all.
Joel can respond. My quick answer is, I get your point, and I think it's a good point, but what we care about is the rule of law. and he's not a rule of law guy. You know, if you don't have a rule of law guy,
who are we going to put in then? Who are we going to put in? Unless Marco Rubio will declare our Alan West, I don't have anybody to vote for but Trump.
I even got a problem there. But Joel, what's your answer?
Well, in the first place, I want to challenge the concept that he's not bought. You know, Ross Perot gave that same impression. He was a strong, independent businessman that wasn't going to take guff from anybody, including the government. And yet, we found out after his campaign that the Perot people were on the phone with the Democratic National Committee every single day from the time he announced to the time that the election was over. They were bought. They
I
were
don't doubt
controlled.
that they communicated with him at all, but as far as I'm concerned, whoever the bought-off press does not want and tries to belittle and tries to turn us on is the person we probably ought to vote for if we have any intelligence left at all.
Well, you know, but Joel makes a good point there. You know,
is the person we probably ought to vote for if we have any intelligence left at all.
Well, you know, but Joel makes a good point there. You know that if how do I want to put it? It's who benefits, and the Democrats benefit here. If he's in there as a spoiler, I have to say, however, I like the fact that there's a whole bunch of people in. The more you get, the better chance you have at Ron Paul having a little bit of a better showing and a plurality. You know what I mean?
No, I take it.
Ron Paul wasn't 75 years old, you know, and he wasn't so weak on, foreign policy. I think he might have a chance, but he'll make an idiot out of him, and you know it.
He's not weak.
Rand Paul would have a good chance.
What were you saying, Joel?
Well, I'm saying that the reason why we don't want that many people and why the establishment is trying to get so many Republicans to join the race is that it cries out during a debate to cut the parties down. They want Ron Paul to get in the first cut, to get out of the debates, so that he isn't standing there 1 against 4. They want him to show they want a dozen people up there, and they want to cut it down to 4, and they want Ron Paul to be moved out by a percentage base of polling which they can manipulate. And that's their purpose in spawning so many people to throw their hat in the ring.
I'd like to say something, too. I don't think that Donald Trump thinks for 2 seconds a day about American interests. I think he spends all his time thinking about Trump interests, and I don't trust him at all.
Well, if Trump interests are American interests, then at least America would benefit. But I don't trust Romney, and I don't trust Huntsman at all. Ron Paul is the only one we can trust, but unfortunately he's too weak. The rest of them are a bunch of jellyfish. If he could get Rand Paul to run, maybe we could have someone we could get behind.
You know, Rand Paul would be, they do the same thing to Rand Paul as they do to Ron Paul. He's not quite as strong, frankly, as his dad is. The reason you think Ron Paul's not strong is because he's so kind, but because he doesn't get it's because of the way he's treated by the media and the leadership in the Republican Party and the mainstream press, you know.
No,
he is very strong.
It's not really. It's because his image is that of kind of an old man and a befuddled old man on certain issues. Rand Paul is much clearer and much stronger in every interview I've ever seen him in.
But he's not as strong principle-wise as his father.
Well, we'll just have to disagree about that, but you know as well as I do, Ron Paul can't get elected, so maybe we ought to start thinking realistically about someone that can put this country back on a constitutional track.
Yeah, well,
when you have that name, put it out there. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'd vote for Ron Paul, of course. You know, he's still good. I mean, he hasn't gone over to the other side here. So, Joel, do you have any comments on that?
Well, I'm just saying Rand is not as principled and as tough as his father is. You know, that's why I say we have to get over this idea we've got to elect somebody. You can't elect somebody with a conspiracy-running government that's going to put this Constitution back on track. I can tell you that as a fact. So what I'm saying is it's the most important thing we can do in a losing political situation is to make sure we never compromise with them and that we build the remnant. We build the people that in the collapse of the coming country, which will someday happen through war or economic collapse, we will not have a compromised people to work with. We will have a hardened, separated people who will be dedicated to reforming under the Constitution.
And as we build that remnant, we will win a few little battles here and there. But we'll never win that big war until Christ comes here and is willing to separate the wheat from the tares, apparently, and not allow that Satan's reign here will end at that point. But we'll still win a few little battles, get rid of some Bob Bennett's and maybe even Orrin Hatches.
Right.
You know, I think that's really important, Tom. You talk about us winning the little battles, and it's really important that we be fighting those battles because right now we're showing the Lord whose side we're on. Are we on the side of our liberty and the government that God inspired, that the Founding Fathers gave us, or are we not? And, you know, being complacent and indifferent puts you on the wrong side. Everyone needs to stand up, take a stand, find some place to put their energies and some place to put their monies that will support the cause of liberty.
We don't have to win. What we have to do before God is stand for correct principles and not compromise, and as you say, build that. And remember what President Lee said, that there has to be a people prepared so that there can be a natural segue. Christ is going to come, burn all the wicked. He's going to do that, but and then institute His will and say, here's how we're going to do it. There has to be a remnant prepared, politically, economically, socially, spiritually, who are there and already trying to implement correct principles and can be the support network and be engaged. And there has to be, and we need to be that in every way in our lives.
And Christians everywhere, regardless of what religion you belong to, it's time for us to show through actions and thoughts and deeds which side we're on, and we need to be on the Lord's side.
I don't have a clock in front of me. Where are we right now?
You know what? We are right up to the bumper music. Guys, thank you so much. I had callers calling in at the end of the hour saying, I know I'm too late to be on the air, but please tell Tom and Joel that this is radio at its best. They love having you on, so thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much, Joel. Good to be with you.
Good afternoon, everybody.